What's up, guys? Aaron J. Daigle here to talk about why God lets bad things happen to good people. Perhaps you've been asking, why is it, God, that I go to church, I tithe, I read the word, I do everything I'm supposed to do, and it seems like other people who don't even do these things and do wrong things in life end up getting blessed, whereas I still feel stuck. And on top of that, instead of blessing me and my family, sometimes we go through things and I'm wondering, God, like if you're real, like if you're loving, like if you're kind, then why is this happening in my life? Where are you? It's for those of us who experience these types of questions that we're putting together this playlist about the crazy things God does. And in this video from the playlist, we talked about the whole concept of good people. So I won't go back into that in this video, and will instead approach it from the sense of people who are living for God, who are doing their best, who are striving to do things right, but seem to be getting either nowhere or even set back in life because this good God is allowing so many bad things to happen. And although there's more to this story, which we'll get into later in the video, there are two legitimate reasons why God does allow bad things to happen to us. The first has to do with our experience on the YouTube channel. It's when we don't like the video, even though we're good people, we sometimes forget. And so God lets bad things like the 10 plagues of Egypt come at us until we remember to like the videos to push them out to other viewers on the platform. Okay, not exactly, but the first reason God really does allow bad things to happen to good people is to develop more fruit in our lives. This comes from John chapter 15, where Jesus compares our relationship to him like that of a branch and a vine. He says that he is the branch and that we are the vines living out of him. He then, talking about his Father in verse 2, says that he cuts off every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit, and he prunes the branches that do bear fruit so they will produce even more. And here's how that verse ties into bad things happening to good people. Assuming that by good we mean productivity or solid character, kind people who love others and go out of their way to help them, Christians with the desire to help other people grow in their walk of faith. In other words, anyone who is out there producing fruit, like what Jesus talks about, is typically what we mean when we say good people. Well, just like a vine that is producing good fruit gets clipped and cut and pruned, then resulting in even more fruit and healthier fruit growing on that vine, Jesus specifies that his Father will clip, cut, or prune us in order to take the fruit that we are producing and turn around and produce even more fruit afterward. You see, when we accomplish things for God, he notices our productivity. And to make us even stronger, he allows us to go through difficulties that develop us into becoming even more effective for him. Now, the second reason God lets bad things happen to good people is because he loves us enough to discipline us. This concept comes from Hebrews 12:6, which says, "For the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he punishes each one he accepts as his child." Now, for some strange reason, we accept this when it comes to our natural parents, but seem to be offended by the concept that God would do the same thing. For example, when I was growing up as a child, my dad was on cocaine, alcohol, and he used to beat on me and my mom. They divorced when I was 7, and I didn't see him too much, but once he started cleaning up, I would visit him on the weekend. My mom, having full custody, being responsible for my schooling, for my health, and ultimately where I would end up in my adult life, was the parent. My dad, seeing me every other weekend, was like the cool guy I went visit sometimes and hung out with. Now, when I was a child, I used to think that my mom was so mean and she didn't care how I felt and blah, blah, blah. Whereas my dad was really cool and he liked me and I liked him and it was always fun. But once I reached an age of maturity and looked back on my life, I began to value and appreciate the hard work that my mom put into raising me. So when I talk about God disciplining us and punishing us as children, it portrays the concept of a 5-year-old kid running out into the street and his father running behind him, yelling and grabbing him really quickly. Any parent in this world would understand immediately that that father did that because he loves his child. Sometimes God may allow a storm to come at us that jerks us. He may permit something that's painful in the moment, but like that child running into the street, we sometimes can't see the full ramification of our actions at the present time. And God, being all-knowing, sees what path we're heading down, and in his love will redirect us in order to discipline us back onto the course of life. Now, although those are two legitimate reasons why God actually allows bad things to happen to good people, there's a whole nother angle of this we have to explore to fully understand this topic. And that concept is that God doesn't do everything that happens. We do things to ourselves, other people do things to us, and the devil does things to us. I read a quote from Chris Jamie that says, "The pride of man hopes but to blame God for the evil evils of this world and to praise himself for the good. So let's take a 50-year-old healthy person, for example. Ask them why they're healthy, and chances are you'll get something like, I've eaten healthy, I avoided the wrong foods, I exercised every day, I got the right amount of sleep. You'll probably hear that because of what I did and didn't do, I have produced these good results in my life. Now ask another 50-year-old who's sick, who may have cancer or may be in the hospital consistently throughout their entire lives. Why is it that you're unhealthy? And it's possible that the person will tell you, I don't know, I've prayed about it, it seems like God isn't there, he doesn't care. But they may not mention that they've eaten fast food their whole life, only slept a few hours every night, and never even exercised along the way. Now my point here has nothing to do with people's health or whose fault it is if you're healthy or if you're unhealthy. My point is what Chris Jamie was saying, which is that whenever things go right in our lives, we tend to look at ourselves as being responsible for it, but when they go bad, we seem to blame God for those hangups. But again, we have to understand that God is not the only one doing things in our world. Sometimes it's us, sometimes it's others, and sometimes it's demonic. So here's where all this stems from. God made a garden and then created Adam and Eve, put them in there, told them to eat whatever they wanted, but not to eat the fruit of this specific tree. The devil comes along and talks them into eating it. They give in to that temptation and eat it, disobeying God and thereby falling into sin. Now God had told them beforehand, the day you eat of this, you will surely die. Nonetheless, they did it anyways. And when they did, three things came into this world that were not in existence beforehand: death, sickness, and sin. Now going back to the question, when we ask why do bad things happen to good people, we're usually referring to something that surrounds one of these three areas: death, sickness, or sin. So let's look at each one. If you have experienced the loss of a loved one or even the loss of a pet, then you felt that pain and that emptiness and have probably questioned God and wondered, why would you take this person from me? And while it's a legitimate human response to question him for this loss, the reality is that death is not a result of God. It is the result of sin. Because Adam sinned and every human being born ever since was the seed of Adam, that sin was passed down, so we are now born into sin. And the Bible indicates that the wages of sin is death. Now, sickness is also a part of that. Maybe you or someone you know is dealing with a terminal illness or has been consistently ill for a very long time. This is a difficult season to walk through, and it corners us into a position of wondering, God, why would you let this happen to me after all the good that I've done? Like, what is going on, God? And again, although a very legitimate response from a human perspective, by saying that God is doing this sickness in our lives, we are linking to God what is actually linked to sin. And sin itself is the third thing here that we're talking about, which causes problems for all of us. You see, when we think of sin, we often think of the normal things that come to people's mind, like cussing or using drugs or something like that. But sin is way more than those things. It's also greed, lust, pride, selfish ambition, and other issues of our heart. And it's these sins inside of us that cause us to hurt each other, even hurt ourselves, even hurt the people that we love most. You see, cheating on your spouse doesn't just happen. It happens because there's lust, because there's selfishness inside of one's heart. In other words, God didn't get you cheated on. The sin inside of your lover's heart did. What does greed do? It causes us to pursue things and ignore the needs of our family around us, their emotional needs. It causes us to take from others. It causes us to hoard and not give out. Well, that destroys our own happiness, our own physical health, and it hurts the other people affected by that sin. What I'm saying here is that not every bad experience is from God. Sometimes it's from the sin in our hearts or in the hearts of those around us. So does God let bad things happen to good people? Yes, he does. He'll do it to build deeper character inside of us or to make us more effective. He also loves us too much to let us destroy ourselves, and so he'll discipline us the same way a parent does a child that they love. But that doesn't mean that what we're experiencing, the pains and trials and tribulations of life, are always from the hand of God. Sometimes it's the devil, sometimes it's somebody else, and sometimes it's us. But regardless of the source, whenever we go through things that are painful and don't make sense, we can still trust and rely on the character of God, that he knows what he's doing, and if he's the one behind this, he's going to see us through it. And even if he's not the culprit, he's still big enough to hold us in his hands and take care of us when other people, the devil, or even ourselves are the ones creating these bad experiences for us. So thank you so much for watching. I hope I've added value to you. And one way I love doing that even more is through the books I've published. I'll link them in the description below. You can check them out, see what's available. And do show some love. If you haven't liked the video already, go ahead and do so. It helps so much with the channel. Feel free to subscribe and turn on the notifications bell to stay updated with all the new videos. And again, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video together.